All right, so we have Seth Hauer on the podcast today. So what's interesting today, Seth, is I haven't done one of these in like 2, maybe 3 weeks. So I'm gonna be a little rusty, even though you're telling me beforehand you are not looking forward to this, but let's get into it. So Seth, what do you do? What does your day-to-day look? Just give me kind of your title, your position, and a quick synopsis of what your day looks like.
Yeah, I'm a senior marketing strategist at Synapse Marketing Solutions in Lancaster. I work with clients across different industries, mostly manufacturing and tech. And what I really do is, consult with them, take a just a high level overview of their business and see how we can help them, whether that's web, branding, Martech, all that different stuff. I mostly focus on uh, the, the technology side, the
Mm.
website, and some content. And really, just day to day, it's a lot of interfacing with our developers, with our project managers, account directors, other strategists on my team. Really, just working together with them to really put together marketing plans and marketing strategies based on the goals of the business, and then turning that into actionable items. So most of my role is that research, planning, and strategic. How are we going to carry this out? How are we going to implement it?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because one, you're my marketing specialist for Synapse. So you and I have had a relationship now for 2 years, I think.
Hmm.
So I think this is really good because people will probably be wondering, okay, like between Lexi and I were the main contacts for you. And what's really interesting, I think, the most is you were probably involved early enough to realize when most of my teammates were a bit skeptical, right? Because this was very new for us. Manufacturing, I feel like, and construction in general, I guess you could put into that realm, is a little skeptical of marketing, the whole social media thing, and how important it is, right? I had belief. I've seen it work in other companies. So when we started down this road, there was skepticism, but now I would say you are integral to the team, and I feel like you work with my team quite often. Like you guys have conversations totally outside of me. You're talking about strategy. People are sending things to you. You're sending things to us. How do you think you get to that point? Did you know you were getting to that point, or did you feel that along, or what did that look like for you on your side?
I mean, my biggest thing is, and I've said this to you, obviously, in your team when I was
Yeah.
meeting them, is kind of breaking that ice and being honest. Of
Mm,
It's not my job to change, your complete organization or to do things completely differently. There's going to be change. There's going to be things that are different, but it's really my job to help you. And especially with SWF, you guys have a very relationship style sales model.
yeah, true.
So it's not my job to go in there and build relationships. It's my job to get the leads that are high quality enough for you to build relationships off of. And I think just naturally with the way your sales model and the way your company is, it's very similar to who I am as a person.
Mm,
And to answer your question, no, I did not. There was always that nervous kind of, you know, are they happy? Are
sure,
they or am I doing a good job? I always put a lot of pressure on myself
sure.
to be great because that's just what I expect, out of myself when I'm working and in everything that I do. So that pressure's always there, but it just kind of hit me one day where, I joined a meeting and people were smiling and cracked a joke with me. And I was like, okay, I'm good.
We're
I'm good.
in.
Yep.
So yeah, that's really cool because one thing I think about working with you for the past couple of years is you take wins like you've our wins are your wins. Like you
Mhm.
are very into, hey, this is a really exciting opportunity, or this came across and I knew it came to the website. Like those are big, huge wins for you because especially when we get them in the door, and then you're watching the fabrication process, right, through video or pictures or
Mhm.
whatever. It's like I was a part of bringing that in the door. Like some of the recent customers, they would have never found us without some of the work you guys are doing, and How does that feel on your end? Because like obviously we love it because we are very data driven, order entry, blah blah blah, all the metrics we have in place. What does that look like for you when the people you're working for get those deals that come from different states or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it makes me ecstatic, honestly.
Yeah.
And part of it is for me, but the truth is that you guys and other clients trust me and my company to make them money and to grow their business. And being able to see that happen, makes me happy because I'm feeling a need for you guys. But it also means that I've gotten to know you guys enough. I've gotten to know the business enough to
Mm,
where it works.
yeah. Yeah. So another thing with you that I think is really interesting that I don't not all marketers are like is you are a very data analytical
Mm-hmm.
person, which is quite interesting. I mean, there's obviously a lot of data and analytics in marketing when you look at, I mean, you showed me the hot spots of where people are clicking on the website, which is just insane. So, how do you balance that creative side and that analytical side, or do you lean more one towards the other?
I definitely lean more. I like to. I'm both by nature.
Okay.
I lean a little bit more to the data and analytics side, but the data and analytics kind of pushes that creativity. So I'm able to look through it from that lens. I'm able to look at the data and see things and get inspired by it. Okay, maybe we need to change this on the website, or a lot of people are engaging with this page. Let's write some new content. Let's make a new campaign. Let's push this out in an email. And so that's what I love about what I do is both of those work together. So I'm pushing that creativity and I'm pushing myself there, but then that they're feeding off of each other and working together.
Yeah, I've seen that live time. I mean, just like recently, we had conversations between carbon and stainless and how that's evolving right as we speak,
Mm-hmm.
even with the website and things like that. And your evolution of reading that through the website analytics and then us pushing a newsletter, a blog, a story, right, that just pushes right into it. So I've seen it happen live time. And I think it's pretty fascinating because I don't think everybody I love data, obviously, and you know that, but not everybody enjoys that side of things. But I think it'd be a huge miss, especially in your arena. Were you
Mm-hmm.
taught that in school, or is that something you learned after, or did you always you're always a science math person, or?
No, I was great at math until we got to statistics and calculus, and then
Yeah,
I was
dude, the
like,
worst.
I'm terrible at this. No data, stats in sports, and
Mm,
the biggest question that I always ask myself is the why. And that, if you're able to, read data and analyze it and get better and better at it, that's really what it comes down to is the data answers some of the why. And then it's my
mm,
job to figure out the what,
yeah, that's
the what and how. And that's something that I've always, when I was a little kid at summer camp, I got the Curious George Award for the. Basically, I was the most annoying camper, but they had to give me an award. And I just always asked questions, and I was always asking, why are we doing this? Mom, why are we going here? Dad, why are we watching this? And then that turned into, my career, and
mm,
I stopped trying to run away from the why and started, what, this is a big part of me. I need to answer it. And then working in
mm.
the role that I'm in now, it's driven by that.
Would you consider yourself not a rule follower?
I've always been the person that's pushed it up right to the edge and dipped
Sure.
my toe on the other side a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes and no on that one.
Yeah, no, I can see that just by saying what, because I'm very much the opposite of you. I'm very much a rule follower and I don't, probably don't question enough, but I love the data side of it. So it keeps me grounded in the sense of like being able to read behind what I'm feeling. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really good. And I think marketing, that's such a strong attribute because you're always thinking anything is possible, which I need that person who pushes me into that
Mm-hmm.
realm. So no, that's really good. Interesting. So it was either in the form for the podcast or on your LinkedIn, but you mentioned about enjoying solving complex problems for work.
Mm-hmm.
What is one of the most challenging problems you've tackled in your career so far?
It's a
And
great
bring some
question.
bangers, man. Get ready for them.
So as I started to get into more of the senior role that I'm in now.
Mm,
CEO of my company, Bobby, who you know
yeah.
very well. He was on the podcast, much earlier than I was. 'Cause he he wanted to push me, and he always does, and I appreciate him a lot for that.
Yeah.
But he handed me the presentation that he gave you about what direction he wanted to take SWF in,
Yep.
and he said, "Hey, I want you to research, and I want you to figure out how we're gonna make this happen and make them money." And that was the first time I'd really stepped back the whole way and looked holistically at the business, holistically at, the industry, the market, everything that's going on, and had to research and build an entire
Mm,
year-long marketing plan for you
heck,
guys.
dude.
And that is the one that, we're currently running, that
Yeah,
Bobby
it's
and I
working
worked with.
great.
So, no, but the 2, 3 weeks, a month I was working on that, I was scared out of my mind.
Sure. What, because of failure?
Oh, 100%.
Mm.
There was the steps of it of, Bobby's going to look at this and be like, this is terrible. And I remember we met with you at the diner at like 6 a.m.
Yep.
And I was here trying to print off the plan, and the printer kept getting jammed. It wasn't printing out right. And then I showed up a couple minutes late, and we didn't even look at what I had spent 30 minutes printing.
That's right. It's awesome.
And I think that, always, I'm very thankful, for Bobby and for you. You kind of, just from that first time we met, were like very, very calming and great presence to be around.
It's interesting because I knew, and at the moment, there's always people that are going to know way more you about or about a subject, right? So there was nothing but up for us in that situation, Seth, because like we had a lot of nothing in this space we're talking about, right? And we had to grow a lot in the last 2, 3 years. So yeah, that's really funny. I remember that story now because yeah, you looked really disheveled when you came in because you were like rushing around, I'm sure,
Mm-hmm.
trying to unjam paper. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. You could have just emailed it to me and would have been fine. I could have pulled it up on the phones.
Yeah.
That's
They
awesome.
just sat there on the ledge of, the booth anyway and weren't touched. We just talked.
I didn't know that you were fighting that much with the paper. I would have taken it more seriously, probably.
I don't want any pity paper.
It's brilliant. All right. Also in the form, you mentioned about growth mindset. It's
Mm-hmm.
very important to you. How has that approach or that mindset changed your professional and personal life, and how do you encourage that mindset in your teams? Because I know you do a lot. Obviously, you do some coaching, and obviously, you're doing some peer stuff at work. So, how have you tried to use that and influence for other people?
Well, for me, it's if I expect things from other people, shouldn't I expect greatness out of myself?
Mm,
If I expect the minimal out of anybody else, why would I expect me, if I'm leading, if I'm teaching, if I'm doing anything, there has to be that I'm going out ahead. And otherwise, I'm not able to effectively lead or effectively teach or coach or do anything. Uh, at least that's my thought process behind it. Uh, but that growth mindset is that 1% better every day, no matter what.
What
I
does that
mean,
mean to you?
a lot of times it means I'm not going to always like the things that I'm doing,
Ooh, good
but I'm
one.
going to do them anyway.
Okay.
And just because I think a lot of times we associate that I don't want to do this with the difficulty. One thing I remember from psychology class in college is that anxiety is a motivator, and you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and reflect and say, what am I, that anxiety, what am I afraid of? What is the thing what is this motivating me towards? And a
Mm,
lot of times it's walking through the fire, because the only way you can beat the fear, beat anything else, or be better than who you were yesterday is by walking through that fire and every single day and just showing up.
is leadership hard?
Is leadership hard? Yeah. You can't control how anyone else is going to react. You can't
Okay.
control always the effectiveness of it. It's completely dependent
Mm.
on other people and other things. And I think that applies to everything, obviously, in life.
Did you always think this way, or did something happen, or did you go through something that smacked you in the face? Because I remember going through it myself. And
Yeah,
that's the reason I'm asking, because I didn't always think the way I think right now. And so I'm interested because you're younger than I am. What happened?
a lot of stuff happened.
A
Um,
lot of happens happened.
yep. Yeah, I it was a lot of mental health stuff.
Sure.
I always kept pushing forward, and eventually you can't anymore. And then you have to go and say, you know what, I need help, or I need to take this seriously and figure it out. And it was,
So did that give you a lot of empathy towards other people?
I've always been very empathetic
Okay.
towards other people, but
Brilliant.
not towards myself.
Interesting. Why? Do you know why?
I've always been pushed. My parents did a great
Hmm.
job of, my parents, neither of them came from a whole lot, but there was a whole lot of love and a whole lot
Mm,
of hard work and effort.
sure.
And so that
So
was instilled very
go ahead.
young, very young
Okay.
into me. And it was always there. And I always wanted to help other people. I always wanted to serve other people and help them accomplish what they want to. But I didn't always see that in myself.
So I know you're really close with your brother. Does your brother have the same mindset as you?
Yeah, yeah, we are. But we come at it a little bit differently.
Sure, sure, sure.
He's
Yeah.
very type A personality. And you know, I might not say it or I might not show it. I'm a little bit more low key in that way. Things happen all the time
Mm,
that we can't
yeah.
control. I've always been a little bit more go with the flow than my older brother,
Yeah.
and we've kind of balanced each other out very well in that area.
It's probably why you guys have a great relationship.
hmm And it wasn't always like that. I mean,
Well, no, it never is.
yeah,
No, it's interesting because you mentioned about servant, and we'll get into some servant leadership questions, but you do a lot for other people, like probably more than some like with coaching. And I know you do camp stuff, and like I think we had a long conversation one morning before our marketing meeting about like you
hmm
doing camp stuff, and I was just like pretty much like that sounds horrible to me because it's like completely opposite of anything I'd ever want to do, which is super selfish, and I'm totally aware of that. But like you love it because you're helping kids fill their potential for
hmm
maybe some things you went through and got to the other side, and you want to help them through that. I think that's fascinating.
yeah. It's definitely, I don't know, it's just always been a part of me. My parents served a
Mm.
lot. I grew up around it. And I mean, the thing is, no matter what you're going through, what's going on in your life, you're still able to help other people. And I think stepping
Ooh.
back out of
Ooh.
stepping back out of yourself and saying, it doesn't matter what's going on in my life right now. I'm still able to love and take care of and help other people.
That's a banger, dude. I get lost in that shit sometimes, big time.
I'm,
Stepping away from the chaos of today, just take a minute to, even if it's something simple, help somebody out.
yeah, I'm terrible at relaxing.
Mm.
And like if I go home, it's really difficult for me to unwind. Even if I'm watching TV or cleaning or playing video games, I'm still,
Woo!
yeah.
How do you
Um,
sleep?
how do I sleep? It's hit or miss.
Mm.
I mean, a lot of replaying my day and thinking through where could I get better. But I mean, honestly, over the years, it's gotten a lot better with that.
Good.
And I think just working through that of figuring out how to, everyone's different, but figuring out how to process your thoughts and retraining your brain to let go of it. It
That's a
took
fact.
me, I still can't do that all the time, but it's going to take time and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it does take time. That shit's hard. That's really good. Well, we touched on some of this. I want to talk about building relationships. It's a big thing for you. You obviously
hmm
do a lot of work with your lacrosse coaching, with your camps, like we talked about. You do a lot of volunteer work. So, What's your secret to forging strong, meaningful connections? You did it with almost my entire team. They now see you as an SWF employee. They call you about random bullshit all the time. We have good conversations. So, what's your secret sauce for that?
For me personally, I just try to find something to connect with
Hmm.
just on a personal level. With you, it was, the first time I met you in person, you were wearing a like Star Wars Christmas sweatshirt with like Phantom Menace characters on it. And I was like, this dude is random and like, I love him.
That's a straight fact. I think I have that T-shirt in my closet to the right.
Yep. But
That's
it's
funny.
every single person, with Jake on one of your BD reps that was Formula One racing.
Yeah,
With, Brian and Nate, it's a little bit of the power sports vehicles. Or you can always find a way to connect with someone. I think we are a whole lot more alike than we are different.
yeah.
And instead of focusing on that, I try to find those commonalities. And that's where it starts. But then it's honestly, it's just being intentional with it.
Mm.
Outside of work and outside of everything else, I have a very tight, very small circle of friends and family.
Yeah, we've talked about that, Seth, and that's actually fascinating to me because I kind of have that, but not really. I don't have a whole lot of friends, and I think it's fascinating because your friends, you guys have all been a tight group since high school, correct?
Some of us, and then so one of us, yes, and
Okay.
then through introducing people to other people, the last kind of 10 years have yeah been.
A Mod Podge.
Hmm.
Okay. You guys all live in the close to each other or no?
Yeah, one of them's moved down by the Buck.
Okay.
He's
But
like the
within
first.
reason.
Yeah,
Okay, that's cool.
yeah.
So
He just built a golf simulator in his garage, so I get to go down and swing some
so
clubs.
how do you keep garnering the relation like who's the connector? Are you the connector that keeps everybody together or who in the group like makes sure everybody stays? Like you guys have a group chat, I'm assuming, all that kind of fun
I
stuff.
don't think like the glue guy in sports. I think it changes, and it has
Mm,
to. I think that people, a lot of times when relationships or things like that come up, it's I can be intentional and I can always give 100%, but you're going to burn out and
yeah.
not be able to hold that together. But I do find that in a lot of my stuff, in a lot of my relationships, I'm like the peacemaker and kind of like the mediator, and that's just kind of where I always find myself. And it's the listener of the group of the more patient one.
Do you hate conflict?
I used to.
Okay.
That's another big thing with that I had to learn as part of that mental health journey is that conflict isn't bad.
Hmm.
It's actually it's actually really great. You
Yeah, it
know.
means people can be open and honest. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously within reason, you don't have to be an asshole, but
Yeah, of course, not throwing punches or screaming at each other, but having a direct conversation of at work, for example. Hey, you screwed this up, or you did this wrong here. The campaigns were supposed to be running last week and they still aren't.
accountability.
Accountability and honesty. And
Yeah.
I tell people if you have anything that you need to say, I don't want a compliment sandwich. I don't want.
Ah, you
Yeah,
don't want the good, bad, good,
no,
the shit sandwich.
just tell me directly. You did this wrong. Okay, well, let's figure it out and
Sure.
let's solve the problem. And I used to be so conflict avoidant, you know,
Hmm.
growing up to get out of trouble. Even if I didn't agree with what my mom was upset with me about, I would just agree with her to get out of it.
Interesting.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I would just avoid it at all costs to the point where just like, yeah, I am sorry. Yeah, I did do that. And I didn't mean any of it, but it got me out of trouble. It got me out of Tabasco sauce on the tongue.
It's interesting. So with your lacrosse stuff and
Hmm.
your volunteer lacrosse coach, which is really funny because good, obviously a good friend of both of ours, Brian,
Hmm.
is the head coach, and you help him coach his lacrosse team. So do you get any lessons from your coaching or anything that you pull back into work?
Yeah. And I was just thinking about this earlier when I was getting ready for work this morning. We have to step outside of work into our hobbies and into our other things to really find that growth in the other things
Mm.
that we do.
What do you mean by that? Why? What did you see? What did you experience?
So in lacrosse, we had a bunch of guys get hurt, and we had a very talented player who he was never the guy that got doubled. He was never the guy that was expected to carry the team because he had other talented kids around him. And he was really struggling with getting doubled, with drawing the best defender, with all of that. After a game, Brian and I were talking, on the ride home, and I was like, we need to figure out a way to, change the offense and change how we're doing things to get him the ball to score or initiate the offense. And then he was like, well, what if we did training drills on how to get around it instead? And then I got home that night and I thought about that, and it made me realize other people aren't going to grow around you, and you're not being a good leader, a good teammate, if you're just picking up the problem and moving it out of the way for somebody else.
Mm.
So if we aren't training people, if we aren't coaching or helping our teammates and our people at work, if we're just, oh, here's a problem, I'm just going to yank that away from you, we're hurting them from their potential growth and the potential of their career. And maybe that's something that they do want to grow in, but not giving them the opportunity really hurts that teamwork and that growth potential for them because you're just ripping it out of the way. And, it's like the helicopter, the bulldozer parents. You're bulldozing the problem out of their way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So give them the skills to get through the problem and then they'll grow from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really good. By the way, I love Brian. Mental health. We talked a little bit about it at the beginning. You're obviously a big advocate for mental health awareness. How do
Mm-hmm.
you integrate? Do you have practices or daily routines that help you, one, help yourself and help you encourage other people to make sure? Like, do you? We always tell our people at SWF, like, if you're working next to somebody and their mannerisms change, that's a big sign that something's going on, right? If they do the same thing, where as humans we're pretty ritualistic, and then suddenly we're changing kind of our mannerisms, that's usually a sign that we need to ask if they're okay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you asked kind of what I do. Sorry, you cut out.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah. What's your daily routines?
I try to meditate most days in the morning.
Ooh, okay. I've never done that. Well, what is that experience like?
It's difficult. I mean,
Okay.
really get into it. It takes you got to breathe, do some breathing techniques, really plant your feet in. And a lot of times it's focusing on your breathing first.
Hmm.
And then once the only thing you're paying attention to is your breath, you're able to, be where your feet are and kind of clear out the mind and set yourself up. The first time I did it was kind of a little euphoric. I had spent so much time with just a lot of stuff running around in my brain constantly without it ever turning off, that
Gotcha.
with it being clear and, I'm able to just slow down and appreciate this moment, or appreciate, I got up this morning. That's great. I'm able to go to work this morning. That's great. Just being able to appreciate each individual moment, I think it's a beautiful thing. I'm not as good at it. I don't spend as much time, and it's definitely not a consistent routine. But when I get into work, I do the same thing every time. Take my laptop out of my bag, plug it into the computer, get a cup of coffee, grab breakfast, sit down, forget to eat the breakfast, and drink my coffee and get to work.
Uh, do you, is there any things that you have come across kind of in your history or your process through some of the things you've been through that are like three eureka moments that may be helpful to other people? And
I
the
think
answer can be
one,
no.
no, there's a lot, honestly. I think a lot of them were when everything fell apart and I was still okay.
Wow, that's good.
My senior year of college was right when I really started to figure out, who I was. And a lot of that was because in I think 8 or 9 day span, a kid I grew up with died. I
Mm.
totaled my car, and my grandfather died all within a week. And
Oof.
I was still able to go to work. I was still able to spend time with my family and cherish the time that I had with them. And it doesn't mean it wasn't difficult and it wasn't not easy, but there's also that piece of just because everything is crashing doesn't mean that I still can't keep my head up high and walk through it.
Mm.
And then I faced a similar situation to that, in COVID. My last college lacrosse game, I broke my collarbone. And, the day I got cleared for non-contact is the day we got sent home for COVID. Yeah. And then, instead of graduating, with all of my friends and classmates were on Zoom in my parents' kitchen. And then that
What
led
that
to,
what did that moment feel like?
it felt surreal because
Mm.
this is not anything that I'd ever imagined.
Yeah, man, I don't think we all realize how fucked up that was.
Yeah, except now when we're older, we get to, the parents used to say I used to walk 6 miles in the snow, uphill both ways to get to school. I can actually be honest and say, like, I was trapped inside for 2 years. And so just because I won't let you play on your iPad doesn't, you're fine. Suck it up.
So, like, was your family there? Was it just your
Mhm.
parents with you? Was actual celebration? Did you feel proud or was like, this is weird, this sucks?
At that point, my family, my grandmother, my dad's parents, my brother drove in from Ohio. I didn't
Nice.
know he was going to be there. That
Oh,
was
that's
a
cool.
surprise. That was awesome. But yeah, it was a lot of my family came in and was there. But I at that point was mental health was not great. I was starting to get to the point where I was numb.
Mm.
So there was little glimpses of that joy and that happiness that were in it. I still look back and I'm like, I did not really appreciate that day or accept it. And I think for me, another eureka kind of moment for me, because I've always had that kind of growth mindset that can lead to that what's next and not appreciating where you're at in the present. And I struggled with that and I still do. It sucks and it's difficult, but I think a big part of that change was, Bobby, every time something good would happen at work and other people, like, hey, accept the compliment. Like, you're speaking very negatively to yourself by not accepting it. And I just didn't step back and appreciate the wins.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I'm not in that space, but when like I love going on vacation and I
Mm-hmm.
love when we do it. But like I hit like 2 days until we fly or drive home and I'm like packing the I'm packing the car like because I'm like on to the next thing already and it's so funny because Jenny tells me all the time like you need to live in the moment, you need to live in the moment. So I totally get that piece of it, but I don't have it from a work perspective. I don't think, but I could be wrong now that I'm more I think about it, but I definitely have it for vacation. Like I'm getting like almost anxious about flying or driving, so I need to like prep for it like 2 days in advance. It's like Thursday, we're leaving on Saturday. It's crazy.
Yeah. See, I'm the opposite. I am not that way with vacation or
Mm.
work.
Yeah, it's
And
interesting, isn't it?
yeah,
Hmm.
this summer on vacation, there was we finally got to North Carolina. My brother and parents spent the first hour of vacation unpacking their rooms, unpacking all their luggage, putting them in the drawers at the house, getting everything like you're at home.
You're in the water already.
No, I sat on the couch and watched a supercross race. I was like, I wanted to watch this, so I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's drawers here, but I'm on vacation. Like, I don't need to put my clothes away.
No, dude, same. I
Or
live out of a suitcase.
yeah,
Totally understand that. And like if there's an Arsenal game on, I don't give a fuck what is going on around there. I'm watching the game, dude.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like, I'm
totally
on
get that.
vacation. Who cares?
That's awesome. You mentioned about servant leadership a couple
Yeah,
times so far. So, what does that mean to you? And would you consider that your leadership style?
definitely my leadership style. And that goes back to what I mentioned earlier of if I'm expecting other people to help me or to do things for me or to work with me, but I'm not willing to do anything for them, that says a lot about you
Hmm.
or myself as a leader. And I grew up very religious and still hold those beliefs. And you look at Jesus, you look at a lot of other great, religious and biblical leaders, and just in general, throughout history, there's a whole lot of servant leadership that's
Mm.
seen from great leaders, and that's who I want to be, because just naturally wanting to help people and being empathetic fits into it, but just also who I want to be as a person, that I strive for, that I strive to be. A big part of that is people feel comfortable, are people relaxed, are people able to be themselves in in the same room with me, are people motivated to be at their best, are they chasing after their goals and and their aspirations wherever they're at. And for me, the best way I can do that is not delegating everything or dumping it off or giving it away, but here, let's walk through this problem together. Let's solve this together. Just because I've done it a million times doesn't mean I won't find another way to do it. And that time also, it gets invested into other people. That pays off for them.
Can you lead people if you don't know how to do what they're doing?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's in that case, that's the encouragement. And again, that honesty and difficult discussion of, I have no clue. I have no clue what you're about to do.
I say that 100 times a day, dude.
Mm. Like,
Because
yeah,
what the reason I asked that is because I used to not think that way. I remember saying to my previous president, "How am I supposed to lead someone when I've never done their job?" And he just laughed at me. I remember him laughing at me in his office, and I was like, "What are you laughing at, you asshole?" And then I realized, 5 years later, like, ah, it's not about that, right? It's not about telling people how to do things. It's not about having to show them. It's motivation, it's encouragement, it's empathy, it's solving
hmm
all the things you can solve in your power for them just to make their life easier and happier and all that stuff.
yeah. Someone told me, when I was in high school, that when people say, leave your problems at home and don't bring them into work, that's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd heard that a million times, and I was like, I don't know how people do this. But a lot of times, that gap in not in, if I don't know what to do, but I can encourage you. If there's a block there, a lot of times it's, well, what's going on in their personal life, or what is scaring them to where they don't feel like they can do this. And so that's what you talk about. You don't talk about solving the problem. You just listen and hear them out and care.
It seems so simple, doesn't it?
Oh, it's still
But when
very,
you're having a shitty day, it's not. That's the hard part.
yeah.
uh, Communication. So, what's one process or communication tool that has made a significant impact in you and your team's work? You've talked about, like, really finding your voice, feeling comfortable in your own skin. How have you found a voice in yourself to one get across, because you're very comfortable in what you know now. I've seen it. I've watched it happen with, especially with our group. So, like, what helped you get there?
I had a lot of people just
Mm.
constantly encourage me and uplift me. And a lot of it was therapy, I'll be honest. A lot of time in therapy and a lot of looking for answers outside of myself. The dangerous thing with growth mindset is you can get so focused on you that you're not allowing anything else in.
Yeah, that's
And you're
good.
looking at a lens of one instead of a lens of a team
Yeah.
or the world around you. And so a lot of that anxiety and fear and everything else and imposter syndrome came from, what are other people going to think? Or what are other people, are they going to think I'm an idiot? And I think the progression has been, growing up, I always wanted to be liked by people. And then working through that to where I didn't want to be liked by people, but I wanted to be taken seriously.
What does being taken seriously mean?
Being respected, that, or seen as smart, or seen as, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. And that was a lot of the anxiety and self-doubt and imposter syndrome at work.
Do you have less of that now?
Yeah, yeah, definitely a lot. And again, that was just walking. straight through it. Like I don't have time to worry about this. Stuff needs to get done.
That's
I'll
awesome.
I'll worry about it later. But I think everyone faces that
Hmm.
those self doubts and those questions every single day in some form or another.
Yeah. I definitely did when I walked into this role because I had no effing clue what I was doing. Um, I don't, in my previous role, I remember fresh out of college, I didn't realize that work isn't a competition anymore. You can ask for help and you don't have to know
Hmm.
everything. It took me probably a year to figure out that I wasn't in competition with everybody else in the office who was around my age. And my boss said to me, just ask someone. You don't have to know how to do everything. And I was like, what? Like, this is
Hmm.
crazy. And then once I realized that, like, it was just rockets, right? Then I realized I can ask, I can call. You just have to know who to ask and who to call. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think you're dead on with realizing like there's a lot to unpack there early on in your career because it's nobody really gives you that playbook to say like this is how you're supposed
Hmm.
to navigate this kind of stuff.
One, my first job out of school was very interesting. It was supposed to be, hybrid, a couple days in the office a week. At the end of COVID in 2021, I moved like 45 minutes away from home and ended up being remote all the time.
Hmm.
So I didn't have a ton of that feedback and that kind of connection. And to this day, my first boss, when I would give stuff for review, would be, I don't know what I don't like about it, but I don't like it. Try something else. And to this day, that still bugs
Haunts
me.
you.
Yeah,
Oh. Well, now you know what not to do.
yeah.
Dude, what's the phrase? Clarity and transparency is the kindest thing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that, right? Like it may hurt, and some of those conversations are going to really be hard, but if you come at it with an empathetic approach, it's the most helpful, caring thing you can do for someone to give them real, honest feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Not, I don't like this, but I'm not sure why. Oh, what a mind f that is.
Yeah, it was definitely.
Camp counselor. We talked a little bit about it. You and I have talked personally about it, and I think you're crazy for doing it, but I get why you do it because you are so servant towards other people. What is a huge lesson you've gotten from that aspect of your life that has helped you in your professional life?
That one, I mean, 1 week every summer I'm in counseling and I'm stuck in a wooden cabin with no air conditioning and a half functional fan for an entire week. And they're fourth, fifth, and sixth graders, and there are seven of them every week. I think the big thing is that authenticity part of it,
Mm,
not trying to change to seem cool to them or to, get on their good side so they aren't mean or crazy. Just being authentically you in every situation. And if people don't like you, that's on them.
they
And
probably love you for that. Of
yeah,
course.
and if they don't like you, they're gonna respect you.
Yeah.
And instead of being like a tough, tough or overly nice, you just naturally find the flow and balance to it.
Wow. Yeah.
And that from a work perspective and just life in general is instead of trying to prove anything to anybody else, if you're just authentically you, the right people and the right things will come. And
It's
if
like a
that,
gravitational pull, dude. And it's not just people, it's opportunity.
mm-hmm,
It's so interesting because you're I think you're so 100% right, and I think it's what really stops people from their full potential. It's just being so scared at just winging it, throwing it against the wall. Some people will like it, some people won't. There's nothing
mm-hmm,
wrong with that. That's totally fine. 50% of it is a totally great number to go after. But when you try to make everybody happy, everybody sees through it and then nobody's happy. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And kids are brutal. Kids are
yes.
brutal.
Yeah, especially the kids that we have up there are from all different walks of life. In my cabin this year, I had a kid that spent a week in Japan, like 2 weeks
Wow.
before coming to camp.
Bet you that was better than camp.
Definitely sure, definitely. And then I had another kid that was a single mom. His mother was a single mom, and he had 4 siblings,
Wow.
and grew up in government assisted housing. And it's the thing is, both kids need mentorship and support. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what the background is. There's going to be different levels of it, and how you interact is differently. And I think that's one of the biggest thing that I learned through all of that is you can change how you communicate with people depending on who they are. You can show different sides of yourself, but you can always be authentically you in every situation. So I'm always going to be me no matter what the situation is, but I may speak differently to you, or I may handle a situation differently with you, but that's not going to change who I am at my core.
Yeah. That's really good. Hmm. That's good, man. Last one for me, personal accountability. Accountability is a big thing for you as well, as it is
And
for Bobby, as it is for me. So, what does it look like in your day-to-day life? Like, how do you hold yourself accountable? And then how do you, would you also hold your team
for
accountable?
me, the accountability, like I mentioned earlier, I really kind of replay everything
Hmm.
when I get home or on the car ride. I'm replaying different scenarios and thinking how I handled them. And then I kind of check myself on, I could have been a lot kinder in that situation. Or I rushed through that and probably wasn't the quality that it needed to be. And a lot of that schedule based. I take a lot of, if you look at my Outlook calendar, most weeks it's completely blocked out with different colors for this is client work. Obviously, the meetings are the meetings. But also, I mean, that blocks out your calendar, but it's also here's what I accomplished or here's what I want to get done. And big thing for that I learned that's really helped that is samurais used to get into an ice bath or cold water before the sun would rise each morning and write down what their plans were for the day and watch the sunrise and then cross out what they wrote down because that was their commitment to themselves and to the people around them.
Jeez Louise.
And so if I look at myself, what am I committing myself to? What am I committing to the people around me? What am I going to accomplish today or for the week? And then taking that step back, and if my teammates looked at me this week and how I acted, did I push them to get better? Did I help them get better this week? And that's really my check for other people is, are other people benefiting from my presence, or did I act in a way that kind of, if I was not in the situation, probably would have been better? And that's a very difficult conversation to have with yourself.
Do you do a shitload of self-reflection every day? There's people who go lifetimes without doing it.
I wish I could turn it off a lot of times, to be honest.
I bet some days, I'm sure. So I love asking this question specifically. What would you go back in time and tell your younger self to make your life a little bit easier?
Believe in yourself the way you believe in other people.
Woo! Dang, dude, that's a good one. Well,
Yeah.
that you see that as your absolute kryptonite, huh?
Yeah. I mean, a big thing with growth mindset and change is the only person that can really stop me is myself. There's a quote by Ernest Hemingway that I have tattooed on my ribs that says, there's nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True
Mm.
nobility lies in being superior to your former self.
Woo!
So
That's
that's,
gangster.
yeah, the writer from the 1920s. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
dude, straight gangster. He knew what he was doing. We haven't changed that much.
no,
We're still battling with the same stuff.
yeah. And the funny thing about that quote is at my first job out of school, there was a huge order in for another business unit where we had to work in the factory for 2 weeks. So I was building cables from 3 p.m. till 11:30 at night for 2 weeks, and then going home and doing my regular job in the morning. And I guess some of the factory workers started to follow my coworker and I up in our break and use our bathroom. And on the inside of the bathroom was that quote of, "Hey, we're all one big family, and everyone needs to respect and love each other." And It's all about personal growth. And I go into work one day and there's a sign on the outside of the door that says, "This bathroom is for upstairs people only. Downstairs people are not allowed."
Ah,
And that's the person that I don't want to be.
yeah.
Am I saying these things to certain people or acting this way around certain people? But then that's not who I am. And
That's the
that's
reason
what
I
a
do
lot of
this podcast, man. You learn something from everybody. Straight up. Doesn't matter what you're into.
yeah. And I think the great thing about teams and the great thing about working with clients is I never thought in my life that I would know the differences in metal or in, difference between TIG and MIG welding,
Yeah.
and
Let's go.
that's a cyclone, that's a shoot, and all
Yeah.
these different things. But it's also opened the door to a lot of conversations and relationships
Hmm.
of, one of my friend's little brothers is at Thaddeus Stevens getting ready, you know, they're in the welding program.
Hey,
Yep.
you want a job?
Yeah. Well, we can chat about that another time.
Well, no, I think what's really interesting is what you're going down, which is what I love probably most about having conversations with you is like one of our crew leaders, Seth Evans, who loves putting
Mhm.
posts on LinkedIn, like he's really been leaning into it and I'm trying to encourage him to do it more. And you mentioned to me just on last Friday when we had our meeting, like you're like I love what he's trying to do. Like I love
Mhm.
that he's putting himself and I love what he's building. And it just goes to show like everybody has skills that you like I could never do what he's doing ever in my entire life, could never build anything he builds on a daily basis.
No.
And that it's incredible what these people,
Yeah.
all of my teammates are able to do with tape measures and welding and roll,
Mhm.
like it's incredible to me the things that get done, and we don't even realize what it takes to just supply our lives with what we think is
I
normal.
mean, you look at just what can I learn from him, or what can I learn from everyone I'm interacting with, because we have different skill sets or
Totally.
different jobs or different lifestyles. It doesn't mean that you can't grow and push each other to be better in what you're good at.
Totally agree.
So,
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I mean, I don't know a whole lot. I'm not a basketball player. I was pretty terrible at it when I played.
Same.
But Kobe Bryant is a lot of what I try to emulate.
Hmm.
And it's not because he was, a great scorer, or because he had that killer instinct in the fourth quarter or in overtime when the ball was in his hands with the last shot. It was his work ethic and his mentality of every single aspect of my life I'm going to be great at. And that was how he approached basketball too, where he was great at every facet of the game of basketball. But he was just as committed to that as he was his daughters and his wife and his businesses and everything that he did. And so for me, that's my push of learning from everyone else.
Yeah, it's real good, man. Um, yeah, so this was one, I appreciate working with you. I mean, I hope Bobby listens to this because um one, not only myself, but my team, obviously they're calling you, they ask you for things, and you've certainly helped us a lot from all aspects of our marketing, bringing leads in, just getting noticed by people that we would never been noticed for. So one, thank you for that, for your
Thank you.
skill set, because you have a shitload of knowledge in that arena. So what I'd like to end with on everything is what would you like to promote? What would you like to talk about? Is there anything out there either from your personal stuff, from work stuff, or from younger marketing people you'd like to close with?
Yeah, synapseresults.com
Let's
for
go.
all your marketing, branding, web needs, and MarTech. I think the big thing that's helped me a lot recently is peer groups.
Mm,
So whether that's Social Media Day Philadelphia that I was just at a couple months ago, um, it's also a membership group. Even just from a mentorship perspective, like I have, you and Bobby and a few other people, but find peers and then find mentors that are where you want to be, because that's really the only way that you can realistically see what it looks like, because those people are also going to start pulling you up.
yeah.
And a lot of times pulling you up further than they're dropping challenges on you that are much further than where you want to be.
Like podcasting.
Yes, this
Brilliant, dude.
you asked me about sleeping. I had lost some sleep last night. I was like, I couldn't fall asleep. I was like, this is going to be interesting.
It was amazing, dude. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
this is
Did
great.
you, in the middle of it, let me ask you this question. In the middle of it, did you remember you were still on a podcast?
Not at all. This felt like every one of our conversations.
Dude, yeah, every Friday, every other, whatever, once a month Friday when we talk for 45 minutes about our fun stuff and then 15 minutes about marketing. Bobby, you didn't hear that. No, it's all part of it. No, and that's what makes you a huge part of the team. So, huge props in your process and your growth, your personal growth as well. Keep going, keep reading, keep surrounding yourself with people that you want to be associated with, because I think that's where I've come to that realization probably in the last year. Especially with reading books. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
reading, but I'm really making myself do that. And then you get to choose, you get to be around. So it makes a huge difference on your outlook on life. So
Mm-hmm.
props to you.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for having me on. You mentioned I about my skill set and what I bring. I really appreciate the friendship and mentorship that you've brought to me, and your stay weird stuff has just really been a big help for me in my career and as a person. So thank you, and really appreciate working with you too.
Yeah, man, saying about me, but thank you for that. And thank you for coming on. I know this
Mm-hmm.
wasn't easy for you, but dude, awesome job. And you make me very excited about the future. I don't worry about as much because I can see you guys, your generation is being pushed very quickly into
Mm-hmm.
leadership roles, probably faster than you're comfortable with, as you talked about. So props, keep going. It only gets easier. And just as long as you lead with humility and empathy, you'll be golden. So great job.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon.
Yeah,
And
dude.
read Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. Great book.
Dude, great book. I didn't read it, but I listened to like 4 or 5
Yeah.
interviews. I love him. 4 or 5
Mm-hmm.
interviews with him about that book, and it just like he was telling stories about his mom and dad, and like, oh my god, it sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks, Brandon.
Yep, see you.
See you.